Australia's immigration system is broken. It no longer works in the interest of the Australian people. Immigration policy from both parties of government, Labor and the Coalition, does not reflect the views of the Australian people. It's driven by big business and used to prop up an economy brought low by poor government decisions.
Mate, grab your sausage sizzle and crack open a can of Solo, because today, we're diving straight into the flaming meat pie that is Australia's immigration debate. Yeah, that's right. It's time to talk about borders, big business and bureaucratic bungles in true Aussie fashion. Loud, opinionated and with just the right amount of sarcasm to keep things spicy. Real quick before we roll the footage, if you're enjoying this content, do me a huge favour. Hit that like button and smash subscribe. Over 98% of viewers watch without subscribing. Oh, don't be one of them. It's free for you and it helps us out more than you know. Already clicked? You're awesome. Let's get into the video.
Australia's immigration system is broken. It no longer works in the interest of the Australian people. Immigration policy from both parties of government, Labor and the Coalition, does not reflect the views of the Australian people. It's driven by big business and used to prop up an economy brought low by poor government decisions. Poll after poll after poll shows most Australians think immigration is too high or should be lowered. A staggering 1.4 million people have been brought to Australia since Labor won power in 2022. That's more than the entire population of Adelaide, our fifth largest city. There has never been such a massive increase in our population in all our history. Last year I called for a national plebiscite on immigration to determine the views of the Australian people once and for all. Labor, the Coalition and the Greens blocked it. This showed they do not care about the Australian people's views on immigration. It showed they do not care about the increasing numbers of Australians struggling to find secure accommodation, struggling to afford increasing rents or trying to survive on the streets. It showed they don't care about the inflation caused by high immigration or its overwhelming impact on services and infrastructure. I care because I'm an Australian fighting for a decent standard of living for myself, my family and the Australians relying on me to fight for them. One Nation listens to the Australian people on immigration and we develop our policies accordingly. Late last year, the Department of Home Affairs revealed more than 75,000 visa holders were in Australia illegally. Under our policy, all of them would be deported immediately. Under our policy, they would not be able to appeal their deportation to the Australian Review Tribunal. During the previous 2 financial years, just over 1.4 million people came to Australia courtesy of the Albanese Labor government, an average of 700,000 per year. These numbers are obscene. One Nation will cap arrivals at 130,000 per year, a drop of 570,000 per year from Labor's record numbers. This will allow Australia to catch its breath, catch up with housing and catch up with services and infrastructure. One Nation's policies introduces a minimum 8-year waiting period for immigrants before they can apply for Australian citizenship and the privileges that come with it. Over this 8-year period, immigrants will be required to consistently demonstrate they are fit to become Australians. We want to reinforce the principle that Australian citizenship is a privilege to be earned, not an entitlement to be given away. Foreign students will be included in our 130,000-year cap. Australian universities must be broken to the addiction to foreign students and forced to prioritise the tertiary education of Australian students. With modern communications technology, there is no compelling reason why most of these students can't do Australian courses at home, unless, of course, you factor in the amount of money they send back home from Australia. In 2023, this figure was $10 billion. Not million, billion, 10 billion. It's a scam to take jobs and wealth from Australians, and we're going to put a stop to it. One Nation's policy will also stop those on student visas from using the system as a backdoor to permanent residency and will prevent students from bringing family members here. Our policy also demands the reinstatement of temporary protection visas and Australia's withdrawal from the UN Refugee Convention. TPVs are a proven means of deterring people smuggling, stopping the boats and those arriving by plane. Labor is keeping things quiet, but it's well known that people smugglers are constantly testing our borders and more boats have made it to the mainland in recent months. Under our policy, immigration from nations known as to foster extremism will be prohibited. The major party's failure to scream out extremists at the border is directly responsible for the unrest and violence we've seen on our streets and in our suburbs. One Nation is the only party with a strong immigration policy that reflects the will of the Australian people. That's because we're the only party that puts Australia and Australians first.
Now, if you've ever wondered why your rent's skyrocketing faster than a magpie in mating season, or why you can't find a decent place to live that doesn't cost the GDP of Tasmania, well, apparently it's because Australia's immigration system is broken. Yeah, you heard that right. Broken like a Bunnings chair after a Christmas barbecue. Enter Senator Pauline Hanson, the Queen of Controversy herself, standing tall in the Senate, ready to give the government a verbal whack that could be heard all the way from Darwin to Devonport. Picture it, the marble floors, the echoing chamber, and Pauline clutching her papers like she's about to drop the hottest mixtape of Australian politics. And the topic of the day, Australia's immigration system is broken. Here's how One Nation will fix it. And while Prime Minister Anthony Albanese isn't even there because, the Senate isn't his hangout, you can almost feel the invisible target hovering over his head. Poor Albo's probably in the House of Reps thinking, crikey, what did I do this time? But that's politics, mate. 1 minute you're handing out cost of living relief. The next you're being roasted like a rotisserie chook in the upper house. So Pauline steps up, clears her throat, and bam, here we go. She starts with a line that could double as a trailer for an apocalyptic movie. Australia's immigration system is broken. Dramatic pause. Broken! And you can almost hear the Senate gallery gasp like an audience at a soap opera. The kind of broken that makes you imagine bureaucrats running around Canberra with papers flying, trying to plug holes with budget reports and coffee cups. She says it doesn't work for the Australian people anymore. Fair call, she reckons, because apparently both major parties, Labor and the Coalition, have been treating immigration like a Bunnings snag. Everyone wants one, but no one's paying attention to what's actually inside. According to her, the policies aren't reflecting the views of the Aussie battler. No, they're being written by big business types who think population growth is just another way of saying cheap labour and higher profits. Now, in true Pauline fashion, she brings out the numbers like she's calling bingo at the RSL. Since Labor won power in 2022... she says, 1.4 million people have come to Australia. 1.4 million. That's more than the entire population of Adelaide. Imagine that, mate. Every single person in Adelaide packing up and moving into your suburb. You'd have traffic jams longer than a Woolies queue on Christmas Eve. And of course, she delivers it with the kind of conviction that makes you sit up a little straighter and think, wait, do I even know how big Adelaide is? But don't worry, Pauline's got you covered. She's got polls, and apparently the polls say Australians reckon immigration's too high. Poll after poll after poll, she declares. It's like a broken record, but in the Senate, that's called evidence. Then, just when you think she's about to cool off, she drops another bomb. She once called for a national plebiscite, or a vote, mate, where Aussies could finally say what they really think about immigration, but apparently the major parties, Labor, Coalition, the Greens, all blocked it. And Pauline's not happy about that, not one bit. She reckons it's proof they don't care about the views of the Australian people. Cue the dramatic violin music, because according to her, that means they also don't care about Aussies struggling to find secure accommodation or paying sky-high rents or sleeping rough. She paints this picture of everyday Australians doing it tough, while the government's too busy handing out visas like participation trophies. They don't care about inflation, she says. They don't care about the impact on services or infrastructure. And she says it with the kind of fire that makes you expect her to flip the Senate lectern over. But wait, she's not done yet. Pauline leans in and says, I care. You can practically hear the patriotic music swell behind her. Because I'm an Australian fighting for a decent standard of living. For myself, my family and the Australians relying on me. And there it is. The big one-liner. It's pure political theatre, but it lands. You can imagine a few senators checking if Sky News is already clipping that for tonight's highlight reel. Then she pivots, quick as a roux on caffeine, into One Nation's plan. Because you can't just say it's broken, you've got to say how you'll fix it, right? And Pauline's got a policy list longer than the queue at Centrelink on a Monday morning. First up, illegal visa holders. Apparently there are 75,000 of them hanging about in Australia, folks who've overstayed or slipped through the cracks. And One Nation's plan? Deport them, all of them, straight away, no appeals, no tribunals, no delays, just pack your bags and head home. Simple as that, she says, like sending back a bad Uber Eats order. Then comes the big one, immigration caps. Pauline reckons Labour's let 700,000 people in per year. Obscene numbers, she calls them. So, under One Nation, they'd slash it down to 130,000, a drop of 570,000 per year, she proudly announces. Let Australia catch its breath, she says, like the whole country's just run a marathon with a backpack full of migrants. And you've got to admire the phrasing. Catch up with housing and infrastructure. It's almost poetic. You can picture Australia as a sweaty bloke jogging behind a train full of new arrivals shouting, "Wait up, I just need to build some more roads." Then she gets into the citizenship bit. Under her plan, immigrants have to wait 8 years, 8, before applying for citizenship. And during that time, they've got to prove they're fit to be Aussies. You know, show they can say mate correctly, survive a magpie attack and not microwave fish in the office. Because apparently citizenship's not a right, it's a privilege to be earned. But hang on, she's not letting universities off the hook either. Nope. Pauline's swinging at them too. She reckons unis are addicted to foreign students like a tradie's addicted to iced coffee. They're raking in billions, she says, $10 billion a year. While local kids can't even get into their own courses. So her fix? Cap student visas, include them in the 130,000 and tell the unis to prioritise Aussie students for once. She even suggests that with all this fancy online tech, foreign students could just study from home anyway, which sounds fine in theory until you remember most of them are living in share houses, working at bubble tea shops to pay for textbooks that cost more than a week's rent. And then, as if this policy stew wasn't hearty enough, she brings back the infamous temporary protection visas, or TPVS, a phrase that instantly divides the Senate like pineapple on pizza. Pauline says they're a proven way to stop the boats, deter smugglers and keep the borders strong. We'll withdraw from the UN Refugee Convention, she declares proudly, as if she's announcing Australia's leaving Eurovision because we're too good for it now. And then she goes for the jugular. Immigration from nations known to foster extremism will be prohibited. Now that line, you could hear the collective inhale from every journalist in the gallery, because that's where things get serious, and Pauline knows it. She looks around, calm as a crocodile in the water, and says the major parties have failed to screen extremists at the border, blaming that failure for unrest and violence in Aussie streets. Now, whether you agree with her or not, you've got to admit it's a fiery speech, the kind that makes you lean in, raise an eyebrow and say, "Struth, she's not holding back today." But in true parody fashion, let's zoom out for a second. Because while Pauline's lighting rhetorical fireworks in the Senate, you can almost imagine Albo somewhere in Canberra sipping his morning flat white, reading the transcript like, oh, great, what she said about me this time. His advisors are probably standing around whispering, "Don't worry, mate, she's in the other house. You're safe." Meanwhile, Aussie voters are sitting at home trying to make sense of it all, because one side says cut immigration, the other says we need skilled workers, and the rest of us are just wondering when someone's going to fix the pothole on our street. And that's the thing about Australian politics, isn't it? It's like a backyard barbecue. Everyone's got an opinion on how to cook the sausages, but no one's actually cleaning the grill. And that's why this parody exists, mate, because whether you're Team Pauline, Team Albo, or just Team, can we please stop arguing for 5 minutes? The truth is, we've all seen this political tango before. One politician says the system's broken, the other says it's fine. The media grabs the popcorn, and the rest of us keep paying rent that could buy a small island in Fiji. But Pauline ends her speech with a punchy line. One Nation is the only party that puts Australia and Australians first. And you can tell she means it. There's passion there. Genuine belief. Whether you agree with her or not, you can't deny the commitment. She's like that one aunt at Christmas who won't leave the dinner table until everyone agrees the pavlova's hers. And that's what makes Australian politics so entertaining and maddening. The conviction, the theatre, the relentless Aussiness of it all. Because at the end of the day, our leaders might argue, the polls might swing, and the Senate might turn into a verbal wrestling match. But deep down, we're all still sitting under the same Southern Cross, trying to figure out how to make this country better. So what's the moral of this whole chaotic, hilarious, very Aussie story? Maybe it's this. Every side's got a point, every party's got a plan, and every politician's got a microphone. But sometimes what we really need isn't another shouting match. It's a proper chat about what kind of future we actually want. Because whether it's 1.4 million migrants or just one bloke trying to afford a mortgage in Sydney, Australia's got some catching up to do. And until then, we'll keep tuning in, laughing, arguing, and occasionally yelling at the TV like true blue Aussies, and because that's what democracy down under is all about. So cheers to that, mate. Now pass the sauce. This political sausage sizzle's not over yet.